Joining us now live from New York, Liz Peek. You can read Liz on The Hill. You can read her on Fox News. You can read her everywhere. Or you can follow her on Twitter like I do. And then when she puts out an article, well, it comes right in your Twitter feed. At Liz Peek, LizPeek. That's all you need to know. And you're good to go. And I believe she's on the line right now. That's what I'm told. Let's see. Liz Peek.
Good morning,
yes.
John.
Liz Peek, you're on the line. I got too many texts here going on. I'm live at the Qatar Embassy today. Thank you. Good to have you with us, Liz.
I am delighted to join you on, as what you say, is a rather sad day.
Okay, lots to talk about. I want to start with a shooting. I want to get your take because I've asked our listeners for a better dialogue on this than we've had. Number one, if you keep going down the same path, you end up in the same place. These shootings in schools now, Liz, are becoming too commonplace. We're getting almost callous to it, immune to it. We had kids being interviewed at this high school stepping over bodies and like they didn't think anything of it because, you know, they keep seeing it on TV. Look, I'm a Second Amendment guy, NRA, I concealed, I own guns, I get the whole thing. But that's a tired argument now. And the other side, you got the liberals and the leftists and Bloomberg and the gun restriction people that want to take your guns away. They're saying, you know, Republicans have blood on their hands. Neither of these arguments are helpful. How can we talk about solving this problem?
Well, I think it's
coming
a good
up with some
question,
answers.
and I think it's unfortunate that everybody runs to their rabbit holes sort of immediately.
Thank you.
And you know, I think people who, like you, are in favor of the Second Amendment and protecting our right to bear guns have to engage in the conversation about reasonable restrictions. And that is, on the other hand, you know, the people on the other side have to stop talking about getting rid of all the guns in America because it's not going to happen. I think in this instance, and we've seen this happen before, you know, someone was allowed into this school who didn't belong there. What I understand, and I haven't seen any coverage of this morning, there were 2 cop cars with cops supposedly on premises guarding this school and presumably there to make sure something like this didn't happen. So I'm not throwing blame at the cops, but you do kind of wonder what their role was. What, you know, were they supposed to be protecting the entrance or keeping order in the school? Maybe these things, maybe you go 3 years and nothing happens so that they really aren't particularly engaged. I don't know. But it seems to me there should be some better monitoring of who comes in and out of these campuses. Now, this is a big school, 3,000 kids. It's pretty darn hard when you've got several buildings and a population that size to make sure everyone is a student who comes in the premises. But, you know, I think perhaps better screening of that. And then, John, the other thing which has come up is that the FBI did receive a tip about this guy who was on YouTube posting stuff about being a school shooter. And they apparently followed up enough to talk to the person who posted that, who alerted them to the YouTube post, but I guess they never, maybe, I don't know. We don't know whether they actually went and talked to Nicholas Cruz. But when there are signs, and there certainly were signs here, that someone is sort of bent towards bad, destructive behavior, people need to intervene. And I think that is sort of the message that went out last night. You know, if you see something, say something. The problem is we are so bending over backwards in this country to make sure that we're not invading anyone's privacy or their rights or whatever, that there's a great reluctance to do that.
You're right, Liz. I mean, you really nailed it. Apparently now we're seeing that there were police assigned to the school. We don't know where they were. And again, we're not throwing shade here, okay? We just don't know.
No, it's just
right?
you do wonder, you know, what their protocol was. Anyway, obviously they're going to be reviewing that and wondering whether they could have prevented or better monitored who was coming in and out of the school. You know, there are schools in New York that have some sort of metal detector that you have to go through. It's a pretty horrifying thing. I sure wouldn't want my kids going to school where you had to pass through a metal detector. But if there are big schools where there are rowdy populations, you know what? maybe that's something that has to be adopted. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing makes me sick, honestly. It's also going to be interesting to see when you have a kid that's expelled for disciplinary problems, and then he sort of wanders out into the ether, and I think he then went to another school. I guess one question is there any responsibility on the part of the authorities who kicked the kid out to kind of monitor what happens to him? I mean, is he just sort of untethered? I don't know. And I also, by the way, we don't know where he got the gun yet, I don't think, right?
Well, no, I think the gun was legal. I mean, the kid was 19. He was an adult. He was in the junior ROTC. I mean, he was trained. That's a great program for young people to go in junior ROTC, and it's a great program. He got the gun there, we would assume, or he was able to buy it. I mean, there was no history of mental problems other than the kid was just, trouble in school. They threw him out. But you're right. I mean, you look at his social media, you look at some of the posts he did, you look at the YouTube he did, it's not comforting. Let's put it that way. It's not comforting.
And I think, John, we're all dealing with the idea of, again, the authorities writ large overseeing social media. It makes me anxious because I think there is some already monitoring of Twitter and Facebook and stuff so as to minimize the presence of some right-wing voices, frankly. I don't believe in the ability of Facebook and Twitter to do this even-handedly. But when there are real red flags, when someone's talking about shooting somebody or committing acts of violence, surely that is something that we can all agree should be brought to everyone's attention. And again, in this case, it was. But look, the FBI is inundated with a million people that they're having to follow and look after. It's a pretty tough thing to follow up on every single lead. But there does appear to have been some indications of trouble here.
So here's the thing, Liz, and we're having a great discussion. I really appreciate it. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'm with Liz Peek. She is a columnist for The Hill, Fox News contributor, and a longtime contributor to my show, and I think the world of her, and she's really, really smart. And so, Liz, we're having a good discussion here. We're talking about an isolated incident with this one young man, social media posts, got expelled from school, was he tracked, was he there? So you can put that in the box, but this is not like the only school shooting we've had. Yeah. So my point is, now we have Coral Gables, we had Texas, I can't even remember. It's like every month now, kids are getting gunned down in school, right? Ann and I have two older children, adults. We never sent them to school thinking, they might get shot today. Never. Yeah. And they're 28, 26. We've got a 13-year-old that now you think about it. And that's only a span of a decade, right? 13, 27, it's a decade and a half since our other two kids were in high school. They're gone. So my question is, if we go down the same path, you're just going to end up in the same place. And so I agree with you. I think gun advocates, Second Amendment advocates, have to come together, and there has to be some thought about what we're going to change. And you nailed it when you said both sides just can't go down their rabbit holes, because that's not going to solve anything. And so, yeah, maybe they could have looked at this kid better, but then in a month there's going to be something else. Yeah. And, maybe we say every school has to have police. Maybe we say there's got to be an annual mental evaluation of every public school student. Maybe there's got to be some gun restrictions that gun advocates like me have to say, well, okay, I can live with that.
It's amazing, though, even after Las Vegas, which probably was the single most horrifying thing that's happened it is horrible when these things happen in schools, but think of the carnage of Las Vegas from a guy that had no history, no motive, still that we know, and shot, I've forgotten the total tally, but a huge number of people. I think that on the gun control side, you have to agree, or people should come together to agree, that these assault rifles are a problem. I mean, we own guns. I mean, I'm all in favor of shotguns and owning a handgun if you want one. I don't, but people feel the need to do that. That's fine. I can't really see an argument for an assault rifle. You're not going to go hunting with one. The only thing that they can accomplish is killing huge numbers of people. And in a situation like this school, I mean, the immediate response on the left is we got to ban guns. The immediate assumption on the right is if you even move in that direction and say, okay, assault rifles are no kind of repeating or assault rifle is legal, that is a slippery slope, and pretty soon you're not allowed to have any kind of gun. But let's be realistic. The only way that the guy in Las Vegas or the young man yesterday could kill in volume is because you have these high-powered weapons.
Yeah.
And they have no role in civil society. They simply don't.
You know what? This is going to infuriate my listeners, I can tell you that. And I am a 100% pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment guy. But I'm moving to that position. Look, I don't own an AR-15. What the hell am I going to do with an AR-15?
Yeah.
Like shoot 5 squirrels at once? I don't need, and this idea that, you need one when there's, the government comes and, takes over your land or something. I get it, right? I get the argument. But I don't need that to hunt. I don't need that to protect myself. I don't need that for anything. I just don't need an AR-15. I don't need a magazine. I don't need that level of ammunition. I just don't need it. And
well, John, you know what? This is true. You are a leader on the right, and your voice would be very powerful, raised in this way, because everyone is afraid to say that. Everyone's afraid to say what is obviously true, is that these weapons contribute to these terrible acts of violence. And, when you look at other countries, there are a lot of reasons why we have more violence in this country, and one of them is, for sure, that this kind of weaponry is available. And you're right. You're going to get a lot of angry phone calls and emails on this because it has become sort of orthodoxy on the right that no impingement on your gun-owning rights is reasonable. But I think as these things happen, we have to begin to question that.
Liz, we're on the same page. And I got up today thinking that. And you've had the best line so far is the debate goes down the drain because as soon as this happens, everybody jumps in their rabbit holes. And you've got the whack jobs on the far left that want to confiscate your guns, telling Republicans they have blood on their hands. And then you've got the other side saying that, I had a caller today that said, well, the answer is, more guns in schools. All teachers have guns. I mean, I guess, let's just give everybody a gun. I mean, is that the answer? I'm not sure.
It isn't these days, because what we know now is that troubled kids don't, they don't throw rocks at somebody. They go and find a weapon, and a gun. And that's why you've had, I think, already this year, a dozen school shootings. I mean, it's really appalling.
Liz, you've got children. Are they still
They're
at
all
home?
out of school. And I thank heavens that they've never encountered something like this. I honestly can't imagine what it's like for the families involved, even for the families of survivors, because I think these kids are pretty shattered by an experience like this. And if they're not, it is a huge condemnation of our entertainment culture and everything else. And by the way, I do think those are contributing factors. I think Hollywood also has blood on its hands. I think the violence of video games and our entertainment has, without a doubt, contributed. And I've done pieces on this and read studies on it.
Right.
Without a doubt, it has contributed to the events like yesterday.
How old is your youngest?
Well, our oldest
son?
kid is our only son, and he's in his mid-30s.
Okay, he's in his mid-30s. So when he was growing up, that was kind of before the whole video game thing.
No.
All right.
No. But it was a much different class of video games. It wasn't the gory stuff you have now.
Right. So this is my point. Our oldest son is 28. Jack, college professor at the University of Nevada now. Our youngest son is 13. Joseph, okay? The 28-year-old played all the video games, as I remember, but they were nothing like the games that Joseph plays.
Yeah.
And Joseph's an athlete. I mean, he plays basketball, baseball. I mean, he's got practice 5 times a week. I mean, the kid's going away baseball high school. He's a great athlete. But, he's on that thing with his friends with the headphones on. And, I mean, all they do is blow each other up.
Yeah.
Everybody dies, and the whole game is who shoots up more people. I just don't remember my 28-year-old doing that.
No, they were doing Super Mario.
That's right. Or they were
it's
doing
a very different thing.
Or they were doing MLB or the Madden thing that came out that I used to have to run it by. He'd go crazy over it. There's got to be some responsibility to this because there's just a desensitization, Liz.
You know what I'm saying? It's desensitizing America. And here's the thing, John. Over those years you're talking about, the stuff also became unbelievably realistic. And so you're not just killing stick figures anymore.
Right.
You're killing people that look like people.
Right.
That's scary to me.
You absolutely nailed it. That's why I just got to tell my audience, I texted Liz today at like 7:15 and asked her to come on. That's pretty bad. No advance notice, but I just know when I get Liz on, you're always going to give a very sober analysis of what is happening. And my audience thanks you, Liz, and so do I. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You
Liz
too,
Peek,
John.
follow
Thanks so
her
much.
at Liz Peek, The Hill.